I thought my wedding was finally behind me. 3 weeks had passed since I married Daniel, the man I had loved for almost 4 years. The wedding had been beautiful. Hundreds of guests, a gorgeous venue outside Chicago, and a photographer named Mark who seemed to capture every little moment. Then, one Thursday night, my phone rang. It was 11:47 p.m. The caller ID showed Mark, wedding photographer. I almost ignored it. Who calls a newlywed at midnight about wedding pictures? But something made me answer. Hello. There was silence on the other end. Then Mark said quietly, "Emily, I'm sorry for calling this late. But I found something in your wedding photos." I laughed nervously. "What kind of something?" His voice became serious. "I don't think you should look at these pictures alone." My smile disappeared. "What are you talking about?" "I was editing the final album tonight," he said. "There's a photograph I initially thought was a camera glitch." He paused. But I zoomed in. My heart started beating faster. "What did you see?" "I saw someone standing behind you." I immediately thought of one of our guests. So, Mark took a breath. "The problem is, that person wasn't supposed to be there." I sat up in bed. "Who was it?" "I don't know." "Then why are you calling me?" "Because Emily." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I checked the original files. And the person appears in 6 different photographs." My stomach tightened. 6. Yes. And in every picture. He stopped. "What? The person is watching you." I stared at the bedroom door. "Mark, send me the pictures." "I will." Another pause. "But there's one more thing." "What?" "The last photograph was taken after your wedding ceremony." I swallowed. "And the person is standing inside the room where you changed your dress." I froze. Nobody except my bridesmaids and family had been allowed inside that room. Then Mark said something that made my blood run cold. "Emily, I think you already know who it is." The call ended. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. 6 photographs. I opened the first one. And suddenly, I recognized the face in the background. It was someone I had never invited to my wedding. Someone who was supposed to be hundreds of miles away. Someone who had been dead for almost 2 years. And the next photograph revealed something even worse. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the photograph on my phone, zooming in again and again. There was no mistake. The face belonged to Michael, Daniel's older brother. But Michael had died 2 years earlier. I remembered his funeral. I remembered standing beside Daniel while he cried. I remembered the photograph of Michael displayed beside the flowers. So how could his face possibly be in my wedding pictures? I immediately called Mark. He answered on the first ring. "You see him, don't you?" "Yes," I whispered. "That's Michael." There was silence. Then Mark said, "That's exactly what I was afraid you'd say." I sent the photograph to Daniel. His reply came almost instantly. "Where did you get this?" My hands went cold. I called him. "Daniel, Mark found Michael in our wedding photos." Daniel didn't answer. "Daniel." Finally, he said, "Delete the pictures." I froze. "What?" "Emily, don't send them to anyone. Don't save them. Just delete them." His voice didn't sound scared. It sounded like he already knew what I was talking about. "Why?" "Because you don't understand what you're looking at." "Then explain it." Silence. Then Daniel whispered, Michael didn't die the way everyone thinks he did. My heart stopped. What does that mean? Before he could answer, someone knocked on our front door. 3 slow knocks. Daniel was still on the phone. "Are you home?" he asked. "Yes." "Don't open the door." I walked toward the hallway. Anyway, another knock. Then I heard a voice from outside. "Emily." I stopped. It was a man's voice. A voice I had never heard before. Daniel suddenly shouted through the phone. "Get away from the door." I stepped backward. The knocking stopped. For almost a minute, everything was silent. Then my phone buzzed. It was Mark. He had sent another photograph. The message underneath said, "Look at the window." I opened it. It was one of our wedding reception photos. Daniel and I were smiling at the camera. But behind us, through the window, stood a man. Michael. And this time, he wasn't looking at me. He was looking directly at Daniel. Then I noticed something in Michael's hand. A small black envelope. The same kind of envelope Daniel had secretly burned in our backyard 3 nights before the wedding. I turned toward Daniel. What was in that envelope? He went completely silent. And then he said, "Emily, you need to leave the house." I whispered, "Why?" His answer changed everything. "Because Michael wasn't trying to warn you about me. He was trying to warn you about someone else." Before I could ask who, the lights in my house suddenly went out. And from upstairs, I heard footsteps, slowly coming down the stairs. The footsteps stopped. I stood frozen in the darkness, still holding my phone. "Daniel," I whispered. "I'm here," he said through the phone. "No, I mean upstairs." He went silent. Then he said, "Emily, listen carefully. Don't go upstairs." Another step. Then another. Someone was slowly coming down. I backed toward the kitchen and grabbed my car keys. "Who is in my house?" Daniel's voice trembled. "I don't know. You said you knew what was happening." I knew Michael was trying to expose someone. I didn't know they would come after you. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was Mark again. Another photograph. This one was taken during our wedding ceremony. I zoomed in. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then I noticed a tiny reflection in a glass door behind the guests. A man was standing there. But this wasn't Michael. It was someone else. Someone I recognized immediately. Daniel's father. My father-in-law had supposedly been in the hospital that day because of a medical emergency. He hadn't attended our wedding. "Daniel." "What? Your father was at the wedding." Silence. "What are you talking about? I can see him in the photograph." Daniel didn't answer. I opened another picture. There he was again. Then another. And another. He appeared in the background of almost every photograph taken after sunset. I suddenly remembered something. That afternoon, while everyone was getting ready, Daniel's father had called me. He had said, "Emily, whatever happens tonight, don't trust anyone who tells you Michael is dead." At the time, I thought he was confused because of his illness. Now I realized he had been trying to tell me something. I whispered, "Daniel, what really happened to your brother?" He finally answered. Michael discovered that my father had been stealing money from the family business. I stared at the phone. "That's why he died." "No." Daniel's voice cracked. "Michael disappeared after confronting him." "Then who identified the body?" Another silence. "Nobody." My stomach dropped. What? There was never a body. I couldn't speak. All those years, everyone had believed Michael was dead. But there had never been proof. Then the footsteps upstairs started again. This time, they were coming faster. I ran toward the back door. Just as my hand reached the lock, someone whispered from behind me. "Emily." I turned. Nobody was there. Then my phone buzzed one final time. A message from Mark. I found the original wedding file. There are 247 photographs that were never delivered to you. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. And Emily, one of those photographs was taken at 3:12 a.m. My wedding ended before midnight. So who took a photograph inside my house at 3:12 a.m.? I opened the file, and the first thing I saw was myself, sleeping in my bedroom. The photograph had been taken from inside the room. But the worst part wasn't that someone had been watching me. It was the date stamped on the image. The photograph was taken 2 days before my wedding.